The movie begins with a well-dressed man named Charlie recording a video in a small rundown apartment. While filming, he doesn't notice a scary symbol falling from a decaying refrigerator. In his camera, he spots a strange, otherworldly figure near the fridge. Weird things start happening, but that is only seen in the video that Charlie is recording on his phone. Suddenly, Charlie's phone slips from his grasp as the video shows the eerie figure getting closer to him. The story then shifts back 6 months earlier. Charlie rushes to a hospital to see his sick father. The doctor delivers some bad news about his dad's health. Because his father is quite old, he's not recovering well after surgery, so they've put him in a comatose state until he gets better. Charlie goes to pay the medical bills but realizes he doesn't have enough money. That's when Karina, Charlie's boss, comes to the hospital for a visit. Even in this tough situation, Charlie inquires about their current client. However, Karina reassures him that they can always find new clients. She reminds Charlie not to worry about dealing with clients for now. Later, Charlie meets up with his friend, Ernest, at a small noodle shop. During their conversation, it's revealed that Charlie works as a real estate agent. However, he doesn't earn much because the lady he works for runs an honest business and doesn't focus solely on making profits. Ernest shows him a news article about a couple who have suddenly become famous in the real estate business. The popular couple, Loke and Lucy, operate under the name Hofeng. Ernest suggests that Charlie should aspire to be like them and make a good living. Charlie isn't convinced at first and believes he's fine with his current job because it doesn't compromise his honesty. When he returns home, he sends a text message to his girlfriend, Charmaine, with whom he's not on speaking terms. He apologizes, admitting that he's been busy at work and hasn't had time to contact her. Charmaine calls back and asks why he's texting instead of calling. Charlie teases her, suggesting she doesn't want to be with him because he's not as wealthy as Terrence, an older man. This infuriates Charmaine, and she tells him not to contact her again. Before hanging up, Charlie reminds her not to pursue a relationship with Terrence since he's already married. The next morning, Charlie discovers that someone has smashed the passenger window of his car. He finds a brick inside the car and realizes that someone likely broke the glass to steal something, but there was nothing valuable to take. Next to Charlie's car, he spots the same news article that Ernest had shown him earlier, which makes him reconsider his perspective. Charlie tries to persuade Karina by bluntly suggesting that they should adopt the business strategies of Hofeng to achieve success. However, Karina becomes angry for some reason and threatens to cut his salary. Charlie had asked for his salary in advance to cover his father's hospital bills, and this news devastates him. Feeling disheartened by his current situation, Charlie contacts Hofeng Real Estate and secures a job interview with Mr. Loke. In the following scene, Charlie nervously meets Mr. Loke at an upscale hotel, but he isn't impressed by Charlie's CV. He urges him to make a compelling impression if he wants the job. Charlie misunderstands this and starts rambling about his qualifications and work experience. However, Mr. Loke still looks unimpressed and thinks Charlie isn't a good fit. Seeing this, Charlie becomes uncertain and decides to leave, but suddenly Mr. Loke receives a call from Lucy and changes his mind. He stops Charlie and tells him that Lucy wants to meet him in person. Lucy then takes Charlie directly to her clients so she can observe his performance on the job. As Charlie and Lucy head to the apartment they're selling, Lucy teases Charlie for not having a car as fancy as hers, even though he's been working hard as a real estate agent for the past 4 years. Lucy also reveals that she did a background check on Charlie and found out about his father in the hospital. It seems Lucy prefers working with people who are in desperate situations. When they reach the apartment, Mr. and Mrs. Wong arrive with their daughter, Joey. The Wong family is cheerful and happy. Charlie shows them around, and all thought they liked the place. They are concerned about the high price. To change their minds about the price, Lucy takes them to the balcony to admire the view once more. Meanwhile, Charlie notices that the faucet in the wash basin is running, and as he goes into the bathroom to turn it off, the shower unexpectedly turns on by itself. Suddenly, the bathroom door also closes and gets stuck. Charlie starts to panic and struggles to open the door. When he finally escapes the bathroom, he rushes to tell Lucy about the strange occurrence. Lucy, the cunning mastermind, toys with Charlie's mind by asking why he didn't mention it to the clients. She then approaches the Wong family and suggests that Charlie has something important to tell them. Desperate to keep the job, Charlie doesn't share his eerie experience and instead invents a story about another potential buyer being interested in the same apartment. He says that if the Wongs are willing to pay 10% more, he'll discourage the other client, even though this is a false claim aimed at convincing the Wongs to make a quick decision. Lucy is impressed with Charlie for not revealing the strange incident to the Wongs and decides to hire him. To celebrate his new job, Charlie goes to a fancy bar to meet his friend Ernest. Ernest tries to flirt with some girls nearby, but Charlie advises him against it. Ernest teases Charlie for not flirting, despite knowing that Charmaine has moved on. The next day at work, Charlie receives a substantial paycheck. Then, he notices an attractive woman working in a glass cabin. Over time, Charlie closes many big real estate deals and earns large bonuses and paychecks. Lucy even gifts him a fully furnished, spacious house. Charlie uses his newfound wealth to pay off his father's hospital bills, and he also buys a luxurious car as a status symbol. One day, he takes Ernest to a rundown area to show him a house he thinks is worth buying. Driving his new fancy car, Later that day, Mrs. Wong unexpectedly calls Charlie, expressing concerns about their newly bought house. She explains that they are experiencing paranormal activities while her husband is at work. However, Charlie does not take her seriously and hangs up on her. Meanwhile, Mrs. Wong holds her daughter and hides behind the kitchen wall as the cabinet doors start opening and closing aggressively on their own. When Charlie goes to work the next day, he is surprised to find Charmaine standing at the reception. He assumes she's there for him, and they engage in a polite conversation about his new life and other matters. As they are talking, Terrence unexpectedly emerges from Loke's office alongside Loke, who introduces him as his childhood best friend. Loke also introduces Charmaine as Terrence's wife. After this, Loke assigns Charlie the task of finding Terrence and Charmaine a villa that's far from the city and away from crowded areas. Charlie is to give them a final tour before they make the purchase. Then, Loke reveals that the couple is moving in together because Charmaine is expecting Terrence's child. This news is difficult for Charlie to accept, so he leaves work and goes to a bar to drink heavily. While Charlie is drinking at the bar, Ernest joins him and asks what's bothering him. Charlie shares his trouble, but Ernest doesn't understand because he's unaware that Charmaine is involved with a wealthy older man. In the next scene, we see Mr. Wong, who returns home from work to find his wife acting strangely. Later, when Mr. Wong goes to bed, Mrs. Wong instructs their baby girl to hide in the closet. Then, she takes a pill and it looks like she is in deep trauma. Meanwhile, Charlie shows Charmaine a villa he believes matches her preferences, as he knows her choices from their 7 years together. Although Charmaine finds it a bit cold, she explores the rooms and balconies. Charmaine stays on the ground floor and talks to Terrence on the phone. Charlie catches a glimpse of her heading to the master bedroom with her phone close to her ear. He rushes upstairs to investigate, but is called back downstairs by Charmaine. Charlie, sensing something amiss, suggests to Charmaine that they explore other villa options, but she insists on finalizing this one. As Charmaine gets into Charlie's car, he glimpses a horrifying face in the master bedroom window. Meanwhile, two girls rent out Ernest's recently acquired property, but they are frightened away by the ghostly apparition of an old man. Ernest discovers the terrified girls rushing down the stairs and inquires about the situation, but they are too scared to explain. He tries calling Charlie to seek answers, since Charlie had arranged the apartment for him. However, Charlie ignores his calls and drowns his sorrows in a bar. At the bar, Charlie is pleasantly surprised to find the girl from the office, dressed provocatively. She turns out to be the Ho Feng accountant responsible for payroll and other financial matters. Their flirting quickly escalates into a romantic encounter, and Charlie goes to her place for an intimate rendezvous. The next morning, as Charlie leaves the accountant's building, he receives threatening text messages from anonymous numbers. These messages detail the mysterious deaths of real estate agents. Ernest also confronts Charlie in the parking lot and expresses his frustration. He blames Charlie for getting him a haunted property that no one wants to buy or rent. Despite suspecting something is wrong with the properties listed under Loke and Lucy's company, Charlie loses his temper and scolds Ernest, reminding him that he's an adult who should solve his own problem. Disheartened by Charlie's change in attitude, Ernest walks away. The following day, Loke hands Charlie some property documents and promises a substantial bonus if he can sell them within a week. Furthermore, he requests Charlie to visit the property and take pictures so he can list it under their company. He also speaks on Lucy's behalf, reminding Charlie to not open the fridge. This cuts to the scenes at the beginning of the film where Charlie sees a demonic figure heading toward him through his phone. He immediately runs out of the apartment, locks it, and gets back to his car. He finds a box on his car's bonnet which is labeled as "Do not withhold facts from the buyers." He takes it home and finds news articles and research reports of people, especially young girls, dying under mysterious circumstances. Most of these keys have been shut down in cases. Meanwhile, at the Wongs, Joey is playing with her toys while her father is showering and her mother is cooking in the kitchen. Joey's favorite toy mysteriously spawns on the balcony. When she goes to pick it up, Mr. Wong's water becomes extremely hot and Mrs. Wong cuts her hand while preparing vegetable. Suddenly, Mrs. Wong sees Joey stepping up the fence and trying to, so she runs to save her. Mr. Wong also gets out of the shower and runs toward Joey, but the balcony door suspiciously jams. The couple is engulfed by the misery of watching their daughter the balcony. The next day, Mr. and Mrs. Wong show up outside Charlie's workplace. Mr. Wong grabs him by the collar and unveils the fraud he's just committed while selling them a faulty house. He shows him the papers and also tries to assault him, but Mrs. Wong stops him. She hands the apartment keys back to Charlie and requests to sell the house to someone new, regardless of the price. She doesn't want a higher or lower price, but what she wants is the new owners to be aware of what has happened. Charlie becomes disturbed by the news and stays quiet. Back in the office, Ernest is seen having a meeting with Loke, who is trying to scam him by offering a very low rate for the slum apartment he recently bought through his company. Charlie is surprised to see his friend come out of Loke's office. That day, Charmaine calls Charlie and insists on having lunch with her and Terrence at their new villa. Charlie finds his ex-girlfriend inviting him over a little awkward, but Charmaine implies that they are still good friends. Charlie doubts that, but still agrees to have lunch with her. When Charmaine hangs up the call, she hears weird creaking sounds coming from upstairs. She follows the sounds and reaches the smallest room of the house. She then gets spooked after seeing a closet hanger moving back and forth. It is then revealed that the spirit of a young girl is lurking in Charmaine's villa, though the spirit has not shown herself to Charmaine yet. While Charmaine experiences spooky activities and gets chilly bones, Charlie tries to confront Luke about his property. He tries to get the truth out of him, but he's so stubborn that he politely tells Charlie to not overreact. Ernest, meanwhile, is suffering from his own problems with the apartment. He lights up incense sticks and tries to ward off evil spirits, since he also witnessed the ghost of an old man when his first tenants ran away. Suddenly, ghosts of 3 young boys and an old man spawn out of nowhere and freak the living hell out of Ernest. The electricity power is also cut off, leaving Ernest with the spirits in the dark. Soon, the day comes when Charlie shows up at Charmaine and Terrence's villa for lunch. Charmaine changes her bed sheets and pillowcases before Charlie's arrival. As she's fixing the bed sheet, she sees the bare legs of the young girl, who's lurking everywhere in the villa and bothering her. Despite being scared, Charmaine keeps quiet and greets Charlie. On the table, Terrence confesses that Luke speaks very highly of him, and he has also predicted that Charlie is going to become very successful under his mentorship. Then, Terrence goes to take a call, leaving the ex-partners alone. Charlie notices a change of behavior in Charmaine, so he insists on telling him if she's experiencing something bad. She is hesitant, so Charlie goes near her and politely asks her. While crying, she reveals that she feels the presence of someone else in the house. She also points out that the temperature of the villa often drops very low for no reason. Charlie calms her down, which is witnessed by Terrence from behind, and he becomes doubtful of the two. After having lunch at Charmaine's, Charlie goes home and digs deeper into the box containing hundreds of documents about the mysterious cases. He sleeps and dreams about seeing Ernest at his apartment. Ernest doesn't open the door, so he peeks through the window and witnesses a decayed pair of feet floating in the air. He wakes up in fear and immediately goes to see his friend. At that time, Ernest is trying to paint the walls of his apartments, but the spirits keep ruining it by creating burn marks all over the walls. After encountering the spirits too many times, it seems like Ernest isn't afraid of them anymore, so he shouts at them to stop ruining the walls. The freaky ghosts appear once again and they tell him to look behind the wall. Overwhelmed by the situation, Ernest takes an axe and starts making a hole in the wall. Meanwhile, Charlie keeps calling Ernest, but he doesn't pick up, and by the time Charlie reaches Ernest's apartment, he's done painting the walls. Charlie notices that he is quieter than before. Then, Ernest narrates a weird story about the people who passed away in this apartment, but it remains half told. He brings Ernest back to his house, where he opens the files and finds an old business card of Ho Feng property. When Charlie looks it up, he finds out that Ho Feng was initially started by Luke and his sister, Karina, but a very scandalous drama broke their union, and Karina chose a different path. Karina turns out to be Charlie's old boss, so he immediately meets up with her. She confesses that she finds Charlie to be similar to her brother. She points out that, like Luke, Charlie also kept working and became successful, even after knowing he was doing bad things. Charlie admits that he went out of line to become successful, but he believes he's not like Luke and he wants to do the right thing. Karina also confesses that she felt terrible working with Luke, but now she cannot see Charlie going down the same path. Then, she takes Charlie to Mr. and Mrs. Wong's apartment. Luckily, Charlie has access to it because he's tasked to sell it for the Wongs, so he takes Karina inside the apartment. Karina reveals that before the apartment building was constructed, the place was an ancient mansion of an Asian man. During the World War II, Japanese prisoners were held in the mansion. They were tortured and brutally slaughtered. While Karina claims that the filthy acts done in the mansion still haven't scrubbed off this property, Charlie sees Joey's toy on the balcony. The toy is suspiciously enchanted by an evil spirit, and it hypnotizes him. Charlie goes towards the balcony, and just as he is about to, Karina witnesses it and runs to save him. Charlie comes to his senses and gets off the balcony fence. Next, Charlie is seen sleeping with the seductive accountant once again. She gets a call from Luke, which in itself is a twist. She finds Charlie awake and in a tense state. Charlie confesses that it's about time he does the right thing, and leaves the accountant at her place. She warns Charlie not to underestimate Luke and Lucy. While Charlie goes to sneak into Luke's office, the spirit messes with Charmaine in her sleep in Terrence's absence. Back in the office, Charlie finds Luke's laptop and finds some evidence of Luke's nasty work. He takes pictures of it and sends it back to Karina. When Charlie gets back in his car in the parking lot, Terrence and his men capture him. Terrence threatens Charlie to never show up in his or Charmaine's life moving forward. Then, Charlie goes home and cleans his wound while looking at a giant mirror. The next day, Charlie gets the news of his father's departure, so he goes to the hospital to see his room for the last time. He also meets up with Karina, who discusses the screenshots he had sent her last night. Charlie repeats that he doesn't understand why the properties owned by Kei Sheng were sold to Ho Feng and later bought back from Ho Feng. Karina states that they're doing this to keep the money in circles. Karina's suspicions rise, and she mentions an old self-demise case of Man Hu, the guy who worked as an agent before Charlie. She reveals that Man Hu was suspiciously found strangled in front of his home staircase. When Charlie takes Karina to his place, something shocks her. She reveals that this house belonged to Man Hu, and his corpse was found right in front of where they were standing. She's aware of Lucy and Luke's evil side, so she tells Charlie to look into the mirror for some kind of proof. There, Charlie finds a piece of paper hidden inside the mirror's frame. Karina stops Charlie from taking out the paper, so he stuffs his phone inside the frame and takes a picture of it. Charlie is shaken when he finds the same demonic spell that he found near the fridge in the beginning. He takes the paper to a Buddhist monk, who reveals that it's common in witchcraft to use such spells to suppress the existence of evil. The monk also gives Charlie a tattoo on his arm, claiming it will protect him from evil spirits. Up next, Terrence comes home from a meeting and looks for Charmaine. He finds her in the kitchen sharpening a knife. When he comes closer to her, Charmaine turns back and starts attacking him. Terrence stops the knife with his bare hands, causing severe bleeding. When he slaps her for this behavior, she falls on the ground and with a heavy voice starts repeating the phrase, "The baby was yours." When Terrence looks at her face, he finds out she's possessed by an evil spirit. Meanwhile, at the office, Charlie plays with Locke and tells him about his deal with the Wonks. He talks about a secret party who wants to pay twice what Keisheng is offering them. Locke rages and figures out that Charlie is messing with him. He goes back to his wife and reports everything. The scenes cut to a flashback. We find out that Lucy got rid of her previous broker by unleashing a spirit that was trapped behind the mirror on the bungalow's staircase. Now, they plan on doing the same to Charlie. Lucy pays a visit to Karina at her office at night and gets rid of her first. Before expiring, Karina tries to reach out to Charlie, but Lucy gets to her before that. Meanwhile, the possessed Charmaine calls Charlie and tells him to come over since she's scared. As he goes to her house, he finds Terrence lifeless in the kitchen. Charlie walks past Terrence's corpse behind the kitchen counters and follows Charmaine's crying sound. He ends up in the small room where Charmaine had always caught weird feelings from. Much to his terror, he finds Charmaine all bloodied and taking her last breath since she's in the closet. Charlie saves her by getting possessed by the spirit. Suddenly, the accountant somehow shows up and Charlie loses consciousness. He wakes up in front of his staircase with Lucy by his side. Walking in front of Charlie, Lucy suddenly turns into the accountant, making Charlie sick to his stomach. She reveals that she does witchcraft to stay youthful and control the spirit of Locke's ex-wife, who's suppressed by her spells and is trapped behind the mirror. She reveals that there was a time when Locke was poor and she was his assistant. Both fell in love and dreamt of becoming successful. To achieve success, they murdered Locke's wife and became the owner of her property. She then cast a spell and trapped her spirit. Then, Lucy reaches the mirror to remove the spell, but she discovers another spell instead of her black magic. Suddenly, a spirit comes out and takes Lucy's life. After Lucy's demise, Charlie flees in his car, only to see Locke waiting at the backseat. He gets into a fight and comes out of the car with the spell cloth that Lucy used to have. The scene shifts and we see Charlie waking up beside his comatose father, and his job application at the Ho Feng is yet to be confirmed.